What is the most delusional request you've ever received? My entitled mother demanded I hand over my house to my pregnant little sister because she needs it more than me. I have a sister who has been the golden child to my mother, but not my father for as long as I can remember. My parents divorced when I was a teenager as my mother has always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. And sadly my sister was like her little mini-me. Our mother also seemed to believe she had total authority over me anytime she so much as snapped her fingers. She'd order me around like a dog. It was demeaning. My sister always backed her up too. So no surprise I went to live with my dad full-time after our parents split while my sister stayed with mom. The two of them were very alike. Both pretty much stopped speaking with my father unless it was about money. Though I'm more like my dad. My father started teaching me how to do his line of work as soon as I turned 16 years old. I got pretty good at it. And after 12 years of working for my father, I was made a partner in his company. Things were great. But then about 8 months ago tragedy struck. My father had become somewhat immunocompromised due to being a heavy smoker for much of his life and died at only 60 years old after he caught C-19. I met my mother and sister for the first time in years after we had a socially distanced funeral for my father over a video call. My sister seemed to grieve, but my mother looked indifferent the entire time. However, I was not surprised. The last time she saw my father she screamed at him that he owed her more money, and then threatened to sue him, to which he just laughed at her. He paid alimony and child support as long as he was legally required to, and no more than that. And he even put $30,000 toward my sister's college fund. But 10 years after the divorce he was no longer legally required to send mom money because of the judge's ruling. She's by no means broke. She works the same job she has had for nearly 3 decades, fully owns the old family home we used to share, and even rents out 2 of the rooms in it to Airbnb regularly. Sometime after the funeral my dad's will was read. Apparently, he'd figured that if his heavy smoking didn't eventually do him in, something else would. I was willed nearly all of his assets from most of his money to his business and home. He left my sister a car and about $10,000 in cash. My mother only got $1,000 and a few other items that she'd been claiming were rightfully hers since the divorce. Beyond that, I got the rest. My girlfriend now lives with me in the house my father passed down to me. My sister went from finishing community college to living off her boyfriend and only working part-time online for several years. During that time she got pregnant but suffered a miscarriage. I wasn't aware until after the funeral because we had practically no contact. When lockdown hit her boyfriend's job started downsizing and eventually, he was only able to work part-time. This hampered their finances to the point he was telling her she needed to look for better employment as well since he was trying to find a second job. Then she got pregnant. She claims she and her boyfriend were careful, but calls it her miracle baby. One evening I got an unexpected knock at my door. And when I answered I was unpleasantly greeted by both my mother and sister. They walked right in without even asking and made themselves comfortable in my living room. My girlfriend and I shared a look of confusion. My sister was giggling and looking all over, seemingly giving herself a tour of my home. My mother had just plopped herself down on my sofa and snapped her fingers while demanding a cold bottle of water. My girlfriend got the water for her and I asked what they were here for. My sister seemed all giddy and just ignored me to continue snooping around my home. Before long I heard her yell from down the hall, "Mommy, it's perfect." Yes. She still calls her mommy. My mother finally spoke up and said, "Well, I think it's time to do your brotherly duty." To which I said, "What?" My mother then proceeded to say, "Now that your father has passed, this house should have gone to me since I was his only spouse. But you can still fix this. You make plenty of money and could just buy a new house. Your sister needs this one so much more since she's the one with a baby on the way. But if you're so determined to stay, you could just stay in one room and cover all of the bills until you decide to move out." My girlfriend and I read enough Reddit to know exactly where this is going. And how it'd play out if I let it go on. So I guess you could say we were mentally prepared. I took a deep breath and stated aloud, "That's not effing happening. You don't order me around. Especially not in my own home. Yes, I make plenty of money. But like dad, I'm gonna save it for when I really need it. Not that you care." My mother started snapping her fingers at me like she used to and loudly stated, "Stop. I am your mother. You will do as I say because I brought you into this world. As far as you're concerned, I am God. That means when I say jump, you say how high? This house is rightfully mine. And your sister will live here. Consider this your formal eviction. But since I'm gracious, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack your bags and transfer the deed to me." In the back of my mind, I'm thinking this can't be real. I just grabbed my cell phone and started dialing. My mother quickly stood up and yelled, "What are you doing?" And I retorted, "I'm doing what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my effing house." She started swiping at me and managed to knock my phone out of my hands. Then she proceeded to try and stomp on it. But I was quick enough to snatch it up before she could. "That's it. If you don't leave I will force you out myself." My mother proceeded to slap me across the face. And I returned the favor twice as hard backhanded. So much so that I ended up knocking her back down onto the couch. She held her hand over her reddening and smeared makeup face in total shock. And then yelled, "How dare you?" I went back to my phone and said that if she didn't leave, I would have the police come and remove her by force. My sister came barreling in between us holding her arms out and saying that I should just do the right thing for once in my life and be a good big brother. I snapped and said, "Oh really? I'm the bad sibling? I had to do all the chores in the house while you just sat on your butt doing nothing all day. And you used to steal my hard-earned money just to go out shopping after you spent all of your allowance. So I don't owe you anything. Now both of you get out before I decide to call." My sister started to tear up crying like a baby and said, "Mommy, make him stop. My mother began hugging her and kissing her cheeks while giving me a death glare. Then she seemed to think she'd gotten smart and said, if you do call the police, I can just tell them that you hit me. I could also say to everyone you wanted to do a lot worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that'd be a very good thing for you. I cut her off and said, well, if you haven't noticed, my girlfriend has had her phone out recording this whole time. That means we have recorded evidence of you assaulting me first and openly stating you'd lie to the police. I don't think that'd be so good for your reputation at your job, or your little Airbnb. If looks could kill, my mother would have blown me up like a tactical nuke. But she quickly deflated and started dragging my crying sister out by the arm. My sister was somehow acting like a complete toddler and broke loose of our mother's grip to sit down on my porch step and have a tantrum. I just gave my mother a look and said, do you see now? This is the result of the spoiled way you raised her. She glared at me again, and then I was treated to a show of my mother trying to drag my sister off of my porch steps. But she latched onto the porch handrails and kept saying, you promised me. Over and over again. I let out a cackle and told them both from the door to never come back. My mother flipped me off and then went back to trying to drag my sister off the porch. It took a few minutes, but she finally got my sister to get up and leave with her after yelling, you are a cruel, heartless bastard who will go to hell for this. I laughed some more and said that there's also a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who try to manipulate others to get their way. My mother clenched her fists and was about to say more when I just held up my phone again while recording and said, the clock is ticking, Mom. Get off my property. My mother then walked my sister to the car, gave me one last snooty look, and drove off. I thought that was the end of it. But letting things go was never something my mother would do. After a few days, I started getting messages from people I know and some relatives online. A lot of them were furious with me. But others just had questions about what was going on. I tried to check my Facebook, but couldn't see anything they were saying because my sister and mother both blocked me on their social media. But my girlfriend could still see everything because they kept their profiles set to open. We screenshotted everything. Both of their profiles had posts calling me a greedy, heartless jerk who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's inheritance by paying off the lawyer who handled Dad's will. It was a complete lie and they both knew it. I called my lawyer, who was also my father's lawyer and a trusted family friend. I gave him copies of all the screenshots and the video my girlfriend had recorded the day my mother demanded my house. He sent them a letter I told him to write via express mail that had to be signed for. So I know they got it. My mother called me in an absolute fury the same day the letter was delivered. I told her that if she and my sister didn't redact all of the untrue social media posts they made about me and tell the absolute truth, I'd send all of the information I have to the whole family, her boss, and upload the videos we'd recorded of her online. And then I'd sue her on top of it. She called me unreasonable, and that she just did what she did for my sister's sake. And then went into a full-blown lecture reiterating her belief that my sister still needs my house more than me. I bluntly stated I didn't care what she thought, and if she didn't redact everything and tell the truth, I'd make sure her career was over. She furiously said, fine. Have it your way and keep the effing house. Before hanging up the phone. That evening all of the lying posts disappeared from both their profiles, I was unblocked, and my mother gave me and everyone else an insincere apology claiming she lied about everything she said because she thought my sister needed my house more than me because she's broke and pregnant. But she knew she had no right to try and claim it. As for my sister, she also apologized but just parroted everything our mother said while claiming she just went along with her ideas. Then she blamed what she did on our mother and her pregnancy hormones. The replies poured in for some time on both my mother's and sister's profiles. Many were furious with them for trying to take my house. I got a lot of messages of sorries and my bads from those who believed her. But all it really did was show me who was on her side to begin with, since they believed her nonsense so quickly. They were mostly people from her side of the family anyway. No one on my father's side believed her at all. And openly said so. My sister and her boyfriend ended up moving in with our mother to save money. She put them in the basement to keep her Airbnb running. My sister started crying on social media that she couldn't live upstairs. I'm pretty sure the two of them were fighting with each other because all my sister did after that was complain online. My mother barely posted anything on social media anymore after the stunt she tried.